like to talk a little bit about how we treat each other within the church. I've been going to this church right here my whole life, with the exception of a few things like camp and youth retreats. My entire understanding of how to be a Christian and how Christians live, act, and treat each other is all based on what I have seen and heard from this church family right here. I've heard many sermons, and I have been taught many lessons about how we should treat each other and act toward one another. It hasn't always been easy to understand, and it hasn't always been easy to apply. As I'm sure a lot of you remember, I used to have a pretty noticeable speech impediment. I couldn't even say my own name correctly. It sounded like Hunter. I used to get picked on a pretty good bit by a lot of kids from about 6th grade to the start of 9th grade. People in school would make fun of the way I talked and mock me almost on a daily basis. I also go to school with most of the kids that are in my youth group, so there was an overlap. So I used to get picked on by the kids in my youth group too. It was never super bad, and I pretty much always laughed it off and acted like it didn't bother me, but it did bother me. I didn't let people see, but it made me feel bad. So in return, I used to say things back in retaliation that weren't always very Christian-like. I'm not sure that I have ever learned to trust the people I go to church with any differently than the people that I go to school with. I mean, not on purpose. It just all kind of blends together. It wasn't just me that got picked on. We all kind of picked at each other and made fun of each other at times. It's always brushed off like it is just harmless kid stuff. But I know that I've said some things that could have left a lifelong sting, and so have others. And we haven't done a lot of apologizing either. As I've grown, I've heard a lot and seen a lot, and I'm pretty sure this isn't just a youth group problem. When I was younger, it always seemed strange that the kids in the youth group and the kids at school seemed to pretty much have the same kinds of things to say. Not all the time, but from what I've seen, we definitely didn't stand out from the crowd in school as much as we should. As we got older, I didn't get picked on as much, but the memories still remain. We sing, pray, and take the Lord's Supper together. But a lot of times we treat each other just like the people outside the church treat each other and the way they treat us. Sometimes when we are on retreats or at camp, it's really cool, but then sometimes I don't even see a difference at all. And by this point in my life, I know that we're supposed to be different from the world. I've been thinking about this a lot lately. I like being a Christian, and I like being a part of this church family. I want to go to heaven, and I want to see my family and all of you there one day. Galatians 2:20 says, I have been crucified with Christ. It is no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me. And the life I now live in the flesh, I live by faith in the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for me. I think about that verse, and sometimes I'm not sure that the people on my football or baseball team even know that I believe and that I try to live it. Sometimes I'm not even sure if I even set an example for the kids in the youth group so that they even know that's what I believe. Our Sunday night youth class is called Surviving as a Teen, and Kirby has been talking to us about the struggles that teens face today. And it seems like a lot of us older kids are caught up in so many worldly things, and it doesn't really seem like we trust each other enough to talk about our real problems and struggles. It doesn't feel like we trust each other enough to hold each other accountable either. I want to change, and I want to see our youth group change. On the back of one of our football shirts it reads, Stand tall. Romans 16:1 reads, For I am not ashamed of the gospel, for it is the power of God for salvation to everyone who believes, to the Jew first, but also to the Greeks. That's how I want to learn how to live, and I want to challenge the other members of the youth group to do the same. We need to stand tall and not be ashamed or afraid to confess our faith and act like a Christian. We really need to stop picking at each other and pointing out each other's shortcomings, and instead start lifting each other up. I'm trying hard to make personal efforts to change. I've struggled with cussing at school, and I've asked a close friend of mine to stop with me and hold me accountable when I do. I want to stand tall for the Lord. I know that I still have a lot to learn, but I know that I need to do better. I want to learn to lift people up instead of being a stumbling block or just standing by and doing nothing. Romans 15:1 says, We who are strong have an obligation to bear with the failings of the weak and not to please ourselves. This is telling us that we are commanded to help our fellow Christians in their areas of weakness. we have to be completely honest with ourselves. Are we doing a good job of this? I think that we sometimes have trouble admitting when we are weak or that what we are struggling with. We're way too quick to tell people the overused lie, I'm fine. I don't know for sure, but it kind of seems like it's because we don't trust each other enough to show our weaknesses. I know there are a lot of people that have been here their whole life too, and maybe we need to work on together. Maybe we need to work on getting past the past. So, this is what I'd like to leave you with. James 5:16 tells us to confess our sins to one another. It also tells us that the prayers of a righteous man counts for much. I know I've only been a Christian for 4 years, but I know I'm not the only one here that struggles with how I treat or how I've been treated in the past. So, I'm challenging any of the youth groups to stand tall with me and confess this struggle and work toward being an encourager. It's time we start learning to trust one another and hold each other up. If there is anyone here that could use some prayers to overcome some of these struggles or ask for help in any other struggles, this is the time when we invite you to come share with us so we can be an encouragement to you and pray for or with you. Thank you.